Welcome everyone to this video. We are going to cover some Python basics. I am going to run some examples from LearnPython.org. So if you'd like to try them on your own, feel free to go to that website. For this video, I'm just going to start and do this in multiple parts, so that way it's not too long. So let's get started on some of the first exercises. We'll start with the basic hello world, and then we'll continue from there. So Python is very syntax friendly. It doesn't require a lot. So you can basically start by saying print hello world. And then put that in quotes and run it. And you get hello world. One other thing that they talk about is the indentation. So if you want to indent, let's say, we'll say if x is equal to 1, then the indentation, notice how it automatically tabbed me 4 spaces. Now, there is some debate on whether you use 2 spaces or 4 spaces and what you set your tab to. I'm not going to go into depth here, but I would just say make sure that's consistent throughout your code. And so then if I say print x is equal to 1, then go ahead and run that, and we'll get x is equal to 1. All right, so now let's talk about some variables. We'll start with integers. So we could say my integer is equal to 7, and then if we print my integer, then we are going to get 7. So an integer is basically just a number. The next one we could talk about is floats. So we could say my float is equal to 7.0, and then we could print my float. And if we run that, then we get 7.0. So a float basically has decimal places. So if you're, and another way actually we could represent that is we could say float parentheses 7. And if we run that, we'll get 7.0. All right, now let's talk about strings. So in strings, we could say my string is equal to, we could use double quotes, hello, or we could use single quotes of hello. Now this is also kind of preference. My preference is to use double quotes, because if you're going to put a string within a string, let's say we want to say hello, but then we want, that is like something somebody said. So we'll say, we'll just change this to says Tom. Well, if we want to put some hello here, we want to put that within, we would put a single quote. And then at the end, another single quote. And then what that does is this is all one string. Hello says Tom. And if we go ahead and print my string, then you get the full string. So you can do either one, but yeah, just want to show you that example there. All right, so now let's talk about some assignments. So we could say a comma b equals 3 comma 4, and then if we print a comma b, we are going to get 3 and 4. All right, one thing I want to show you is what doesn't work is, and that is mixing both integers and strings. So just as an example, if we try to do 1 equals 1 and 2 equals 2 and hello equals hello, and then if we try to print 1 plus 2 plus hello, then and try to run that, it's not going to work because we can't use integer and string. Now, if we convert these to strings, then that would work. All right, so let's go ahead and do an exercise that they give us. So we'll say my string is equal to hello, and then we'll say my float is equal to 10.0, and we'll say my integer is equal to 20, and then we will do this if statement to kind of show you how this works. So we'll say if my string is equal to hello, let's print a string. So that would be string, and what I'm going to do is use this %s, and that's basically a placeholder for a string. And then if I go out of that, so that's basically what we're going to want to print, and then I'll do a %s again, or there's just a percent my string. And then, so on the next one, we'll do the same for my float. So we'll say if is instance my float and my float is equal to 10.0, then let's go ahead and print float, and then there's a %f, or also called a modulus, but we'll talk about modulus later. So %f, and then percent my float. And then we'll do that one more time. If is instance my integer, and my integer is equal to 20, then let's go ahead and print integer, and then that is represented by modulus d, and then we'll say my int. All right, let's go ahead and just kind of look through it and run through it. So basically I've defined a string, a float, and an integer, and we're gonna check some conditions. So if the string is hello, then we're gonna go ahead and print string. We're gonna pass in my string and print it. Same thing here. If my float is equal to 10, then we'll say float, we're going to pass my float in there. And then same thing here, if my integer, pass in the integer, is equal to 20, then we will pass in or print the integer with my integer. So let's go ahead and run that. All right, so it's printed all three statements: hello, float, and integer. All right, well, hopefully that example helps. Let's keep going on to the next one. We're going to talk about lists. So let's go ahead and do some examples. So my lists, we use those by brackets. So we can create an empty list called my list, and then maybe we want to append. So we'd say append, and then we would put inside here what we want to append. So example 1, my list append 2, and we'll do one more, my list append 3. All right, so let's show out how that works. So if I print my list, and let's go ahead and show the position. So like position 0. Pause the video and let me know what you think that one will display. And same thing, we'll print my list position. We'll do the next position at 1, and then we will do the next one. At position 2. So let's go ahead and run that. And you'll see the position 0 is the first number in the list. Position 1 is the next number in the list. Position 3. So it's going to print out each one of the lists. So we had an empty list, and then we added 1, 2, and 3. All right, now let's do another example. Let's take out the print, so we'll leave the list in there, and we'll say for x in my list, and we're basically want to print out x. So this should do something similar. If we run it, it will print out the whole list, 1, 2, and 3, everything that's in there. All right, let's go to, one example I guess that would not work is if you tried to print something out of my list. So something like 10. This would not work because you only have 1, 2, and 3. So let's just print my list. 1, 2, and 3 right there. If we get rid of that and run it so it's more clear, 1, 2, and 3. All right, let's do an example, one more example here. So if we have numbers as an empty string or an empty list, and then let's do a string as an empty one as well. And then let's do names. Let's create some names in here. So what they have is John, then Eric, and Jessica. All right. So then let's go ahead and append something to each one of them, or to the numbers. So we'll say numbers dot append 1, and we'll do 2 and 3, just like we did before, to add something to the numbers. And we'll do something to strings. We'll go ahead and add append. We'll do hello world. How's that? So hello world. All right. So then what we could do is, another example is we'll do a second name, and what we're going to do is assign names at position 1. So we're going to basically create a new list, and we're going to grab something out of this one here. So position 1 is going to be Eric. So let's go ahead and print some of these to show you what they look like. So print numbers and print strings, and then print, we'll add some text here. So the second name on the list is, and then we'll do %s and %, and pass in the second list, or second name rather. All right, let's go ahead and run that and get see our output. So our first one here, print numbers, is a 1, 2, and 3 that we've appended. Then hello world is what we added to strings as we did that one. And then what we're saying here is the second name on the list is Eric. And what we've done is we've grabbed second name, which is right here. And second name is coming from the name string at the first position. All right. Let's go on to one more. We're going to do operators. And then we'll wrap up this video, this part. All right, so operators are arithmetic. So for example, you could say number equals 1 plus 2 times 3 divided by 4. And if you remember in math class, the operators go multiplication and division from left to right. So we're going to first multiply 2 times 3, which is 6. And then we're going to take 6 divided by 4, which is 1.5. Yeah. And then add 1. So if we run it, we're going to get 2.5. So the assignment operators, we have addition, multiplication, division, subtraction. Those are the arithmetic operators. Some other ones that we could try, we could say squared would be 7 squared, or cubed. Cubed would be, let's say 2, and we do 3. And essentially what we're saying is the exponent. So 7 to the second, or 2 to the third. And let's just print those out. So 7 squared is 49, and 2 cubed is 8. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about some concatenation. So plus operators, like for example, if you want to add 2 strings. So if we have hello world, and our string is hello, plus maybe we have a space in there, and we want to add in world. And then if we print hello world, run that, you can see it adds all 3 of those together. That's what the plus does with strings. Another thing we can do is multiply strings. So we could say lots of hellos equals hello times 10, and print lots of hellos, and run that. We'll get 10 hellos. Let's do numbers. So we could say even numbers. We'll go ahead and assign some even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8. And odd numbers, do the same. We'll start with 1, 3, 5, 7. And then let's add those together. So all numbers. Let's do odd numbers plus even numbers. And if we print all numbers and run that, it's going to add both of those into the same list. Another thing we could do is multiply lists. So if we said print, we'll put in the list 1, 2, 2, 3, and then we will multiply it times 3. If we run that, we'll get the list 3 different times within one list. All right, let's run through another example. A little bit of variation, a little bit of difference here, but just to give you some more context on how these would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple lists. I'm going to have an X and a Y, and then I'm going to concatenate those, and I'm going to look at the length of each one of those. So I'm going to make a object X, and then I'm going to store that in the list and multiply it by a larger number, and that will populate our list. And I'll do the same thing for Y, and then I'll output those. So the way I'm going to do that is we're going to say x is equal to an object, and then y is equal to an object. And then we'll first create our x list, and that would be our object of x, and multiply that by 10. So that's going to fill our list. And then the same thing for y. Oops. And then let's go ahead and make a big list and concatenate those together. So big list would equal x list plus y list. Now let's go ahead and print those out. So we'll say print x list contains, and we'll just say %d for decimals or digit objects, and we'll do a length. We're going to check the length with the len and x underscore list. All right, and now let's do the same for the other two. So this would be y list, and then this would be big list. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and run that. All right, so it's saying that our x list has 10 objects. So basically our x list, we've taken the object of x and just multiply it 10 times. The same thing for y. And then for the big list, we've added those two together. So we'll have 10 of x and 10 of y. And then here we're checking the length of that, and that'll give us 20. All right, we have run through the first 4 exercises on LearnPython.org. So this is part 1, and if you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and let me know if you have any comments, and I hope to see you in the next video. So long.